Hi everybody, how you doing? Welcome back. It's Monday. Welcome to another week. Here we are. I got my haircut. Can you tell? Ed got his haircut too, and he got a head shine. Didn't you get a head shine?
I shorted Canopy. I got a real haircut.
You shorted Canopy?
No, I did not. I did. I just said that.
Boy.
So like we were talking that things are rolling over a bit.
Wow.
Like the S&P, and maybe the marijuana sector will follow it.
Yeah.
Well,
and then Canopy puts out a press release at lunchtime. We're licensed in the U.S. now to grow.
Holy smoky!
I know.
I meant long. That's when you call your broker. I said, I never said short. I said buy it.
Yeah, exactly. What told you to short that thing?
I'm calling my lawyer. Jesus.
Yeah. Canopy Growth pulls another first out of the hat, and the significance of this press release is probably going to take a couple of days to percolate up through the comprehension of the average bear, because it's pretty big. You know, I found it interesting that they quote Chuck Schumer's passage of the Farm Bill in the first paragraph, so it's all very interesting.
Yeah. And it was down this morning $1, I think.
So here's the thing now.
Okay.
This is the question that you got to ask yourself as investors. Does this mean that all the Canadian LPs who have been staying out of the United States because the TSX doesn't want you in the United States operating cannabis if you're on the TSX, does this mean that's off the table now?
You know, there's so many conflicting signals.
Yeah.
You know that. Well, wait a minute.
Yeah. Like, take this thing. So 25 people won the lottery in Ontario out of 17,000 applicants. 25 people won licenses to open
25 separate licenses.
25 separate store locations,
which they think are worth $1 million, $2 million at least.
Well, this is the thing. So these are. It's like basically being handed a ticking time bomb. It's like, yes, you've got a license, but you've got until April 1st to get your store fully licensed, equipped, and open, because if you're not selling weed on April 1st, $12,500 comes off of that $50,000 deposit you had to put there. And if you're not selling weed by April 15th, another $12,500 is taken as a penalty.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure I'd want one of these licenses without like a pretty solid game plan. Of the 25 people who won licenses, apparently 60% of them are non-corporate private individuals. And I know that half of Bay Street is busily running around every population center buying, or rather optioning up all the real estate they can get their hands on.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. It's going to be interesting to see. 17,000 applicants, 25 winners. Now, what happened? Correct me if I'm wrong, Ed. Do we live in a free and fair democracy?
We never did.
What? I thought
it was free and fair when there was no government. That's when it was free and fair.
That was anarchy.
Well, we're going to hear about that later.
Anyways, we have one hell of a show coming up today.
We got foraging. We're going to talk about
Monday. This is pretty good. Yeah, we've got Anthony Dutton is here from Cannex. They've just recently teamed up with Forefront. Forefront is speaking at the Benzinga conference down there in Miami on Wednesday.
Yes.
And so that's interesting. Bit of a change of shine on the whole Cannex thing, which was a single state operator in Washington, as you recall, and is now going to be a multi-state operator. 3:30, we've got Dan Matlow joining us from VitalHub. Dan was with us about not quite a year ago, and we're going to hear how things have been going for VitalHub since then.
Okay.
We have a feature coming a little later on veterans in cannabis from our friend Sean Cookson. Greg Engel is going to be here, CEO of OrganiGram, which has always been one of my favorite companies, one of the original 5 licensed producers in Canada, and lots of other fun things. And of course, our usual not run-of-the-mill analysis and astute and pointed deconstruction of events driving markets and the economy. Here's Ricky Gerwitz with the news, though.
Thanks, James, and here are the headlines moving markets today. Aurora Cannabis Inc. has entered into a letter of intent to acquire all the issued and outstanding shares of privately held Whistler Medical Marijuana Corporation. It's an all-share transaction valued at up to approximately $175 million, including certain milestone payments. The transaction is expected to provide Aurora with a premium and differentiated organic certified product suite, expanding both its medical and adult use offerings. The agreement will also increase Aurora's presence in the West Coast cannabis market. Ontario has announced the results of its cannabis retail lottery, naming 25 companies that are now eligible to begin applying for a license to operate a brick-and-mortar pot shop in the province. Absent from the list of 25 were any known cannabis retail brands. Among the companies randomly selected were Pure Alpha Holdings, Tripsetter Inc., CGS Foods Inc., and the Niagara Herbalist. A majority of the 25 lottery winners appeared to be individuals, and according to the AGCO, only 33% were registered corporations. Canopy Rivers Inc. has announced its investment in Greenhouse Juice Company, a plant-based food and beverage corporation. Canopy Rivers has committed $9 million in a convertible debt financing package that includes secured and unsecured debt, warrant coverage, and board representation rights. Proceeds from this financing will be used to supplement Greenhouse's national expansion and initiatives for the development of natural health and wellness beverages infused with CBD. Aleafia Health Inc. has sold 2 cannabis crops to CannTrust Holdings Inc., representing the first transactions under the party's previously announced 15,000 kilogram cannabis supply agreement for 2019. The 2 crops purchased by CannTrust were harvested at Aleafia's indoor Port Perry cultivation facility. They will supplement CannTrust's offering of cannabis for its medical patient base of more than 58,000 registered customers, and CannTrust's 4 recreational brands, Live, Synergy, Escape, and Peak Leaf. Canada House Wellness Group Inc. is opening its 11th medical cannabis clinic on January 21st in Fredericton, New Brunswick, under its wholly owned subsidiary, Canada House Clinics Inc. CHC locations across Canada say they offer highly trained nurses working as cannabinoid therapy educators, as well as licensed and specially trained prescribers. Dixie Brands Inc. announced new leadership and priorities for its pet wellness company, Therabis. Dixie has hired specialty pet food and CPG veteran Bob Rubin as the first president of Therabis. Therabis plans to significantly expand its bricks and mortar presence in 2019 and recently signed an agreement with Central Garden & Pet, a distributor with access to thousands of retail locations nationwide. Tilt Holdings Inc. announced that it has officially closed the acquisition of Jupiter Research, an inhalation and vaporization technology company. The company signed a definitive agreement on January 2, 2019 to acquire Jupiter Research for $210 million to bolster Tilt's hardware offerings and further optimize the consumer consumption experience. Cannara Biotech Inc., a vertically integrated cannabis company focused on cannabis derivative products, has announced that its common shares began trading today on the Canadian Securities Exchange under the symbol LOVE. FSD Pharma, directly or indirectly, acquired ownership of 85 million common shares of the issuer, representing 12.25% of the issued and outstanding common shares ownership. And that's your news for today.
As Bunny used to sing on his show,
What do you sing?
he'd say, I dream of Jeannie, she's a light brown hair.
I remember that, actually.
I think it's hilarious. Some of the lines in that were actually quite sophisticated.
I know. So the news, like Aurora buying $175 million, spending $175 million on Whistler. Whistler has always been one of the best regarded providers of medical cannabis in BC.
Private.
It's a private company.
Yeah. So there you go. So maybe there's better value. Maybe, you look at the numbers. I don't know.
This is the thing. So, but here's the thing. They announced the takeover of a $200 million deal, essentially, and the stock goes up. This is not what normally happens when there's a major corporate takeover. The acquirees' stock goes down.
For $175 million, what's the market cap of...
well, it's private, so we don't know.
No, the other company.
Aurora?
Yeah.
It's $5 billion. Oh, what's the market cap? No, it's, let's see, 900 million shares times 8 and change.
Yeah, so $7 billion.
Yeah.
$7 billion buying... so it's a small piece of the puzzle, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
Like 200 million on $7 billion is like 1/5 times 7, so 1/35, roughly 3%. So it's 3% of its value.
Yeah.
So would the management be involved with, I haven't looked at the deal, so I don't want to start to speculate.
Really? I'm just reading my Skype for the first time today. Other news, Canopy gets this award for
New York. That's big.
New York.
Well, New York is big, right?
New York. Yeah, New York's huge. Well, more than that, it's like the first LP listed on the TSX that's now like doing business in the United States.
And they're going to supply CBD product or
CBD only.
And that ties into the Farm Bill, which is hemp. Hemp can be now used for CBD, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah,
CBD,
if I'm
what's
going to smoke
interesting?
stuff, I'm going to smoke I think I've decided I'm not interested in CBD. I'm interested in
THC. Well, you're a stoner though.
I'm
Ed.
a
The drug
not a rolling
Epidiolex for
stoner.
GW Farmer. We had David Kadikel here last week from Ulticorp, who's the
Right.
head of research, and he was telling me that Epidiolex is essentially 98% CBD, which has caused the FDA to deschedule CBD from a Schedule 1 drug, being a narcotic with no medical benefit, to a Schedule 5 drug, which means it has medicinal benefit and is now a controlled substance, which is very interesting to me. So like if I come up with a drug that's 98% THC for some condition that the FDA determines is a cure,
Yes.
does that mean that THC will then be descheduled?
Yes.
And does that mean then technically
Yes.
that the entire...
In fact, I'm going to say right now, let's get the wheels in motion.
All right, let's smoke some THC. What do you got?
I
You know, I
haven't
took
had a drink
delivery of
since
my...
Friday. Okay,
you
tell
haven't
me.
had a drink?
Since Friday.
Well, that's no
amazing.
wonder you're so like...
I know.
I took delivery of my
Yeah.
home grow system, 4 hydroponic pots in a 4x4 tent measuring 4x4 by 5'7". I've received 2 packages of seeds.
Can I make a suggestion?
Granny's Medicine, 20% THC, 18% CBD, and one called Critical Mass. It's only 5 to 6% CBD and 5 to 6% THC.
Right.
So I got my
What's can you get something that's 50-50?
50-50?
Yeah.
Well,
No, but 50%. Like, so you could never get 50% like pure.
like, no, not in a plant, because some of it has to be plant.
Good point. Good point.
They've got...
It wouldn't come out
the
like
highest-
in capsule form.
Yeah, no, the highest recorded THC content of any one strain so far is, I think, 40 or 36%, isn't it? And it's grape something, Gorilla Grape.
Gorilla Grape.
You know, I'm just going to Google this while we're talking.
You know, maybe we should have a contest, James. You get yourself and 3 of your friends, associates, and have a little contest. Who can grow the best plant?
Well, actually, my neighbor. So I bought my system from Grow Buds. I'm getting my neighbor a system from Northern Lights, which is owned by Canopy, which is owned by Aurora, rather.
Right.
And we're going to start our plants at the same seeds at the same time.
And see who's got the better equipment.
It's the 2019 Midas Letter RAW.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. So we're going to see which
And you can
contraption...
you can sort of use your show to monitor what's going on.
Well, this is it. We're going to be shooting like
Are we
lots
going
of
to
time
be
lapse.
growing right in here?
No, you can't grow here.
Why not?
You can only grow in according to... Now, I've actually read...
You've read some of the
Cannabis Act.
Yeah, in
you
your
can
home.
only grow it in a dwelling place. It doesn't say home. It says dwelling place.
What if you moved in here? You're not allowed to.
Then it
probably.
would be in my dwelling place, wouldn't it?
Yes,
But
it
it does say that you're not allowed to grow in a commercial establishment.
Okay.
And no corporations are allowed to grow whatsoever, or be in possession, never mind. So as a corporation, you can't own or grow cannabis, no matter what. Unless, of course, you're one of the lucky ones who just won a lottery license. Potentially.
Yeah. So those licenses are valuable, apparently. Like people, can you sell them?
Well, I don't
if you
know.
want it, can you sell it?
We'll find out.
I'd like to sell it now, please.
If anybody in Ontario won a license and now needs the money to open a store, please call us. We're speaking to one tomorrow. We're going to speak to one of the lottery winners tomorrow. How about that? God has spoken to us, and we're speaking to a
how
lottery
many people tried to get a license?
17,000.
So it's 25 over 17,000. So that's like 1 out of about. That's a tricky one for me. Well, if it was 25,000 people, it'd be 1 out of 25 out of 25,000. Would be 1 out of 1,000.
So 0.001.
Yeah, so it's one out of 1,000.
Let's just say that it was a crapshoot and a long shot.
Yeah,
now you've got to come up with a lot of do-re-mi. But most importantly, so now you've won the license. So now you're going to start going to landlords and saying, I want to open up a cannabis store. How many landlords do you think are going to be like, oh, okay, sure, here's the paperwork, go for it?
Yeah.
No, they're going to be like, yeah, hold on, I got to talk to my lawyer. What are the implications of me having a cannabis store in here? You know, it's just crazy.
There's an article about some of the odor emanating from some of the growing operations.
Yeah.
And some people are complaining. Mm-hmm. What kind of odor would it be?
Well, during the budding phase?
The budding.
It is intoxicating. It is like honey and wine on the winds
clover
that just carry you off to a
like June clover.
Place.
Just like June walking
clover.
in the fields of Ireland, smelling the June clover.
It's all green and
Jesus.
the soft breezes blowing on your face.
Okay.
Anyways, boy.
Emerald Health up 11.
Yeah, Gorilla Glue is one of the top.
Gorilla Glue.
Gorilla Glue strains.
That's a product that they sell on TV. Gorilla Glue.
Yeah.
That's not the.
Okay, this one, you know what? I'm at this site that wants to tell me all about the preamble. What are the strongest cannabis strains? Let's ask Leafly. Oh, this is 2015. That's no good.
Yeah.
Ah, boy. Highest THC content strain. You know what? While we're looking for this, here's Anthony Dutton from Cannex. Anthony, welcome back.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, too. We can still say that, I guess.
Yes, I think.
Anthony, Cannex has really undergone quite the revolution in the first weeks of 2019 here. Tell me about all these new developments.
Well, they really stem from our early December announcement of our business combination with Forefront. I believe you had Josh Rosen on your show around then to talk about the merits of what we're doing. So we're very close to getting our definitive agreements done and signed and announced. And then from there, it's just a matter of having a shareholder vote and moving to close the transaction. The premise of the whole transaction is to take our operational expertise that we have in Washington, where we are by far and above the most efficient, productive extractor processor in Washington state, and plug that into other jurisdictions. Forefront come with a number of states, some big ones, some very, very important ones, Massachusetts, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Maryland. We're looking at opportunities jointly in California, Arizona, and Nevada. So the thesis here is to become a multi-state operator. You know, that is what the market is looking for. That's ultimately what consumers are going to need to see.
Right.
And we've decided late last year that the best way to do that, the best way to fast track that, was to essentially get married with a very complementary group. And we looked around quite extensively. Forefront looked around also quite extensively, and ultimately we had the good fortune to meet. And strategically we're aligned, complementary skill sets were aligned, and we think that, you know, as 2019 unfolds, if you will, operations are going to become more and more and more important. You know, 2018 was really a year about strategic alliances, getting licenses, building your funded capacity, having a strong balance sheet, and we believe that 2019 is going to begin the time when investors want to see operations. They want to understand that you know how to allocate capital, measure a good return on capital, and run your business like a strong operating business. And we bring that, and so to Forefront. So I think together, 1 + 1 is going to equal 10.
Interesting. So Forefront is going to help you build out this sort of multi-state designation. And
well, from a particular perspective, so we look at the cannabis industry like everybody else as having a value chain, and the value chain is really in our minds kind of 3 distinct elements. You've got the cultivation element, you've got processing, extraction, and then you've got distribution and retail. Their real core competencies are in the distribution and retail end of things. They do have cultivation licenses in some of their states, whereas we bring very, very strong expertise in cultivation and processing. So by marrying our core competencies, we become unbeatable in my opinion, across the value chain, allowing us to be a vertically integrated multi-state operator, which is what our objective has been since the very beginning.
So when you say multi-state operators, who would be some of your peers in that realm?
Oh, companies like Acreage, for example, or Cura, or, to me, a multi-state operator, you have to be present in more than 3 states. So there's a number of companies that fit that profile. And then you probably have, the top 5 or 6, and then the second tier. I think the best question that investors need to really ask themselves, however, is what are the top 10 companies that are going to be the most important cannabis operating companies in 5 years from now? And what are the criteria that we're going to use to measure that? And in terms of how we look at that question, we think, well, you need to be in large population states. You need to be focused on brands. You need to have an understanding across the value chain, and you have to be very good at retail to own the customer experience. So if you look at the question that way, or look at the opportunity that way, in my opinion, and in the management of Forefront, the Cannex Forefront combination is going to make us become one of the most relevant, important companies in the sector.
Sure. Okay, so what states are you looking at besides the ones that Forefront's involved with? Is it like all the states that are where you're allowed to sell cannabis medically or recreationally?
For the most part, sure. But we're looking at large population states. So we love California. Everybody does. I know you spent Christmas there. It's a huge opportunity. It's bigger than Canada. I think you got to be very careful, very strategic about California. I think California is going to be a company maker. It's also going to be a company breaker. If you allocate too much capital to the wrong opportunity, you could easily find yourself going down the rabbit hole. So we're very, very careful about California. We like Nevada. We like Arizona. We like Florida. So those, New York, New Jersey are pretty important to us as well. But ultimately, large populations, you want to also go where you're either already recreational or near to recreational. So there's a number of states that fall into that category. But the way this industry has evolved over the last 12 months, James, it's amazing. I mean, you've been sitting right at the front end here. I think it's going to be a national market very soon.
Yeah.
2-3 years.
Well, which sort of brings me to my next question. I mean, to what extent is the idea of price competition on the underlying sort of commodity itself, cannabis, going to render the playing field a lot more challenging than probably the less experienced of these MSOs are ready for?
Well, that's a great question. And I think you've got to look at the cultivation segment, if you will, of the value chain as essentially being two elements of value creation. You've got the large, what I call industrial grows, the 1 million square foot greenhouses that are going to be just, commodity pricing. It's a race to the bottom. They're going to be supplying biomass feedstock for extraction, for all of the derivative products. And then you're going to have the smaller, curated boutique cultivation operations like what we have, where you can still charge a premium price for your flower to the same people who would, for example, buy, or spend $100 on a bottle of wine, for example. That market will continue to exist. Where we really want to focus is the middle part, where you take that biomass and turn it into branded products. Because that's where I think you really have the ability to start to build a relationship with a customer. The margins are much higher. As I always say, nobody cares where the tomatoes come from that go into Heinz ketchup, but everybody likes Heinz ketchup. So for a lot of the derivative products, the source of the biomass and the pricing of the biomass will be very akin to an agricultural commodity. But for certain parts of the flower market, premium indoor quality grow will still be very, very important, and that's where we excel.
Okay, so then Washington is a state that has already swallowed a lot of companies due to price competition.
They have.
And so what is sort of the secret approach to maintaining market share in a price competitive environment?
Brands. So on the flower brand, we own number 1 and number 2, and on the edibles brands, we own 7 of the top 10. So we were very focused on the brand experience, the brand packaging, the whole brand conversation.
So when you say brands, you're talking about the brand of the cannabis that is packaged, not the strain per se.
The brand, exactly, the name of it. So if you go into a dispensary in Washington and ask for either Legends or Private Reserve, that is a brand under which we sell our various strains. If you go into a dispensary in Washington and you look for a Magic Kitchen Marma, for example, that is one of our brands. So we under the Magic Kitchen umbrella sell Marmas, chocolates, a whole range of edibles products, and ultimately that's where the market is going to go to. You know, people are already talking. Vivian Azer at Cowen, who's a very highly regarded, you know, analyst in New York. I'm sure you've spoken to her. You know, she talks about cannabis as becoming a CPG business, consumer packaged goods. Just like chocolate or wine or potato chips, and people are going to have their brand loyalties. They're going to buy one brand over another. I don't think we're actually at a point in the market yet where you can comfortably command a premium price, because people are still very price conscious. But ultimately, I think as the market evolves, you will have premium branded products. And an example I always use is chocolate. You know, I love chocolate. And 20 years ago, it was unheard of for people to spend, you know, $15 or $20 on a small box of Godiva chocolates.
Right.
They just wouldn't do it. They'd buy something for $1 at the 7-Eleven.
No, I'm fully geared towards premium brands, and in fact, I always looked for, you know, I didn't care who's got the cheapest. I want to know who's got the best, and I don't care what it costs. I only want to smoke the best. So I think there's a huge contingent out there.
Huge.
And that's a great place to occupy. There's a lot of excitement surrounding the idea that biotech is actually going to be where most of the value is going to be created in cannabis. Does Cannex have any sort of ambition or sort of direction towards any biotech evolution of product?
You're talking about sort of IP, is that what you mean?
Well, IP, but also, you know, like I'm thinking Epidiolex and GW Pharma.
Oh, okay. So on the pharma side of things, we think that market has got some real potential. I wouldn't say that we have a near-term strategy to be a strong or a big player there. I think before that market even kind of becomes legitimate, you're going to need to see, you know, a lot more drug research, like Epidiolex, for example, you know, DIN numbers, big pharma getting involved, but ultimately the product comes from the same place.
Right.
So if we can build relationships with pharma companies that are going to take our extracted distillate, for example, and use it as an ingredient of a medication, we'd be all over that. But for the time being, I think the larger market kind of exists in what I call the wellness market. You know, people who take recreational cannabis to feel well, or people who take recreational cannabis for, you know, medical ailments, you know, inflammation, headache, can't sleep, nausea, anxiety, those sorts of things. You know, I think that is a wellness market on a scale sort of 1 to 10, depending on where you fit in there.
And do you have any updated sense of when legalization will happen on the federal level in the U.S.?
I think it's going to be sooner than people expect. And that's just my kind of gut feel around that. I don't have any data points that I can sort of point to, as it were. But I think that there's a lot of participants or people who want to participate in the industry who are unable to. In the financial sector, for example, commercial banking, you know, investment banking, you know, the financial side of the opportunity, and they have a very strong lobby group. They're probably not very happy that others are kind of eating their lunch, as it were. So I think that it would be likely that it could happen sooner rather than later.
Okay, Anthony, let's leave it there for now. That's a great update. We're going to keep following with much interest, and thanks for joining me again today.
Thank you very much.
So, Cannex, you know, still 80 cents, and but now I think it's going to be a different day now that with this Forefront Group.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's kind of cheap at this price. I haven't bought any yet to put my money where my mouth is.
Should we put a picture up?
Should we put up a bid? I've been getting, you know, look at Juju's starting to look okay. Hey, I wanted to point out that we were, remember we talked about BLVD last week, Boulevard?
Yeah.
And guess what happened? Came out with a press release today, and 6.5 cents. Actually, let's see, I haven't looked at it lately today, but so you would have made like 50% of your money had you listened to us on Friday and acted on it. Not that we're telling you what to do.
So you could have bought it at 4 and sold it at 6, or 4.5.
4.5. You could have got it for 4.5 and sold it at 6.
If you were quick.
If you were quick.
Boulevard Centers. Yeah. Okay. Wow. You could have got it at 4.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, yo. So, it's at 5.5 now.
Maybe you were given some good tutelage there from you know who.
From who?
You know who.
Yodelay. Hee-hoo. Have you looked at the index at all today?
Yeah. Let's. I want to look at the S&P. Okay. Can we do that?
If you like.
I want
You're
to
driving the bus.
SPX. I got some ideas here. At least I got some comments. Okay,
Yeah,
there we go.
I'm sure you do.
There we go. Here we go.
Okay.
So
What time frame are we looking at here?
6
first of
months.
all?
That's a 6-month chart. Okay, come on, do it please. Okay, so I kind of say that right here where there was some pretty major support that lasted for probably a month.
Yeah.
And then we broke this here, so we came down, we went here, but every one of these things got a little lower, and then broke down. And now we've come down here. This is apparently this is one of the most dramatic sell-offs that go back over the last 100 years.
Okay, so how much was sold off there? What was the loss?
I think from top to bottom was 22%.
Okay, zoom in on that. Let's have a look at that because I can't really see what.
Okay, let me just clear this. Clear. Okay.
Oh.
So we're talking, I think, from here to here, and we've had a major move back up here. But the problem is you've got this now as being sort of the upper level, and we've got this rolling over here. But you notice how like there's a pattern there, and it's rolling over slightly. I'm not saying it's going to break down here, but if you read that article that your friend, I think
David Rosenberg
was in the Globe today, he's suggesting this is not an owner's market. This is a rental market. Rental being, flipper.
You remember that show?
Remember it? I was Flipper.
You were Flipper. I always saw you were a little aquadynamic there in your configuration.
Aqualung. I was Aquaman. I developed a lung, and then they called me Aqualung.
Oh boy, remember that band, Jethro Tull?
Oh yeah,
Aqualung.
Aqualung.
The little forest nymph outfits. Jesus Christ. That guy was kind of like the butt of jokes back in the rock and roll era, wasn't he? Jethro Tull. Ian Anderson was his name.
You know what? You were much more.
He danced around like a pixie, and he played the flute.
But it was pretty good.
It was pretty good.
Pretty good music. Unique, right?
Well, it was unique. It was unique. It was the kind of thing that. Aqualung.
Yeah.
No, that was.
So look, I think that look, if we don't get back over this line, the longer it takes, there's a possibility.
The hump, you mean?
And I was reading another piece about there's some signs out there that things are slowing down pretty fast. Like airlines are starting to warn. Like what happened all of a sudden? Like in other words, people can't stay in Vancouver because it's too expensive. So maybe did we push it out too far?
I mean, kicking the can down the road?
Well, they're kicking the can down the road, but they started raising rates. And he mentioned the fact the Fed's always raising rates way too late. And his argument was, I believe if you read the article, and I sent it to you.
Yes. I went and heard him speak on Thursday.
I know.
The article, I glanced at it and
so what did he say?
Familiar.
What did he said? More to come on the downside.
Well, he basically, he suggested that we were already in a recession. It was going to get worse.
Yeah.
Which was funny because during the luncheon, this guy, Andre, we met.
Yeah, we met. We met. Years ago.
Started off the luncheon saying that, there's a secular bull market in place and it's only going to get stronger. So it was like the most confusing thing. It's like your eyes were crossed by the end of it. And then of course Johnny Kovacevic got up there and told us the copper story.
Yeah.
And which we had on last week, by the way. You should go look that up if you want.
And then actually, Peter Cunningham, our friend, sent me something and said that we should get a hold of. He said, because I have a position in Crown as you do, Voodoo. He said that we should get Johnny to buy Crown.
Gianni
Kovacevic. Like, why not?
Yeah, I don't know if that would constitute a win. It would be more like a mercy killing.
I know. No, that's right.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that much about his company's called Copper Bank.
Yeah, and he's got a number of good properties,
good
but
projects.
He's banking. He's
banking copper.
Yeah, banking copper. He's doing what Steve Dunn does in a bigger way.
Yes. The whole copper thing, if we're going into a broad global recession,
I know.
copper stocks will arguably rise and demand will fall and the price will come down even further. So
Copper stocks, not copper stock market stocks.
No.
Copper.
the stockpiles of copper.
Yeah, inventories.
Right. The usage, the use of available copper will
less usage, be more copper lying around.
This is the thing. It's like, as you and I both know, and one of your favorite expressions is that the market can remain illogical far longer than you can remain solvent.
Yeah.
And so,
I got to tell you,
if you're going to be a bank, and you're going to buy and accumulate assets that you're hoping to sell at a higher price down the road, you got to ask yourself,
how long
am I going to live to see the higher price I need to make this trade work?
Well, remember he said there was a strong correlation between oil and...
Formerly was a strong correlation between oil.
So, oil was, if you go back to when oil peaked, right around $75 was when the market peaked. And then oil crapped out big time, and the market crapped out. So oil was being a barometer still to some degree.
Why don't you pull up a chart with oil and the S&P on the same chart?
I don't know how.
You don't know how?
I don't know.
Here, I can do that. Hand over your damn computer, Edward.
Okay.
Pull up a chart of the S&P, and I'll overlay the oil.
Well, how are you going to do that?
I'll show you.
USO, I think, is the oil thing. USO.
Well, WTIC. I want the commodity. What is that? An ETF?
Well, there's an ETF, but the ETF will mirror, USO, United States Oil.
Okay, let's see if this works here.
Okay, just hit the,
Okay, so first I'm going to go settings.
Jesus,
and
you're
I'm
quite
going to go overlay
you're
indicator. I'm going to click that. And I'm going to go
HT guy,
Holy
HTG.
Shit, how can you read this
I can't. Funny thing, I wear glasses.
Wow. Jesus. It's like, okay, that's not it.
And I think Gianni, Gianni, right? Gianni.
Yeah.
Gianni.
Yeah.
I think he's saying that copper is going to become the new barometer, more so than oil.
Well, that's what his representation is.
That's his perspective.
Right. Okay. I apparently I lied. I don't have the ability. Well, I shouldn't say it. I don't have the ability. It's just that I can't read your tiny, 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 tiny font. Okay, OIL.
I would think USO is the ticker for. Is it oil or is it USO?
This thing's pissing me off.
Jesus. Okay, we'll do it for tomorrow. We'll figure it out for tomorrow.
All right. Chart study for tomorrow.
Chart study for tomorrow.
Action item. A chart juxtaposing the performance of oil, the commodity, versus the S&P on a relative basis. Not on a price basis, on a relative basis.
Right.
So that way we can see, where does those lines should be traveling close. If oil mimics the broader market and vice versa, then they should be correlated, right?
Look, oil, because I trade those ETFs once in a while. Oil has moved from about 41 up to 53. That has happened when the market rallied. So there's correlation there, for sure.
There's correlation, you just got to know how to look at it.
Well,
now, Ed, I want to talk to you about your thoughts on Homo sapiens.
I read a book not that long ago about, this book is entitled Sapiens. It's a famous book written by an Israeli professor, and these are some of his
Conclusions?
Yeah. Okay. And he's a well-respected professor. Professor Harari. And these are, maybe I didn't translate.
Okay, roll it.
Earth Dad, wake up, Ed. Money, commercialism, we're running around. It's a rat race, right? It's a fucking rat race. Everybody's worried. Read the book Sapiens by Harari. And he talks about the 70,000 years that our species has existed. And he said he's convinced the happiest time was when we were foragers and hunters, and we just lived. We spent 2 hours getting the food, and the rest of the time we just fucked around. No mail, no taxes, lots of ass. You know what I mean? It was all okay. And then somebody decided, let's create farming. And then let's tax those pricks let's protect them. And they pay them money. And then it's just changed, right? Then you start praying that we have a good crop. If you didn't pray before and you get a good crop, you didn't have crops. You just went into the forest. Earth Ed. Wake up, Ed.
I'm here now with Dan Matlow, CEO of VitalHub, trading on the TSX Venture under BHI. Dan, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've chatted.
Yeah.
Tell me what's developed for VitalHub in the last little while since we talked.
Oh God, I think we're getting close to 9 months to a year. I can't remember exactly. We've made a great amount of progress since the beginning. It's we had a business plan that was setting out to do some M&A in the healthcare IT space, primarily focused on the mental health community agency space, and we did our first two acquisitions that have been integrated pretty effectively. A company called B Sharp, another one called Hinex, and then we've added three other additional small acquisitions into it. So. We've progressively been integrating the companies very effectively, and we're showing the results accordingly for it.
Okay, great. So then you announced a 5-year deal in the province of Nova Scotia. What does that mean for the company's revenue structure?
As I said, we integrated all the companies, and that particular transaction came through a company called Hinex. Their product is called Treat. It's a electronic health record for mental health and community agencies. Nova Scotia started embarking on a journey to transform their social agencies. So their company called Department of Community Services has been going through a transformation project for about 2 years, and came to the conclusion that they wanted to transform and get one cohesive technology set that would do everything for the entire department. So they went through a procurement process, issued a request for a proposal, in which we bid it on at VitalHub using the Treat particular software. I think we don't know exactly, but we've competed through some pretty large organizations, brand name organizations that would be multi-billion-dollar, multinational based organizations. We got shortlisted, went in, did the presentations, and we won the business.
Great.
So the transaction is a 5-year initial term with an option to extend for 5 years. We fully expect, based on this, that it'll be a 10-year project. It's close to the $20 million ranked over a 10-year period, but published a $9 million procurement for the first 5 years.
So $9 million bottom line to VitalHub.
It's VitalHub, $9 million worth of revenue. And upon implementation, it will take us a little bit of time to get implemented. So we initially will be some licenses revenue and some recurring revenue that come along. There'll be some services revenue as we build out the system. That's pretty well 85% built, but we need to do some tweaking for the particular province.
Okay.
But once we get full deployment, we expect that to be about a $2.5 million recurring revenue stream that's going to come into the organization. So very material based.
So how many deals like that are you going to do in 2019, do you think?
We got others that we're working on a provincial nature. We can't give any disclosure, but we are seeing the trend. And Nova Scotia, by the way, there's still expansion in that deal. That doesn't include all the services. We expect there's more services that we can go build over those years. So that's the initial base transaction. But we are seeing trends. We do have a very good install base of product across the country already in piecemeal effects, but we are seeing trends to do regional and provincial types transactions. So we are starting to see organizations say, hey, we've got these piecemeal based systems. How do we integrate them all? How do we do those type of base systems? So we're excited. We think we're in a good position. It doesn't move overnight in government, but we do expect to see some indications of that as the years go on.
Okay, so how does the competitive landscape look in this sector generally now? I mean, I haven't heard of too many other companies coming along to do what you do.
Mental health community services is a newer niche-based marketplace in the healthcare sector. We have by far the largest footprint in Ontario, and I think in even the Canadian marketplace. And there's still a long way to go in terms of that footprint. And we are looking at doing some other scenarios internationally as well. So different provinces have different requirements, but we got footprints in those provinces. So we're Canadian-based organizations. Whatever footprints will be American or other based organizations, but there's Canadian-specific content that needs to go into these things. So we think we're very well positioned into that particular market.
Okay, so what is sort of the global growth strategy for the company long term?
The global growth strategy hasn't changed. So our mandate is to make M&A acquisitions. So we've done 5. we're looking at others right now in this sector and other sectors that we're familiar with. The next one we like to do, which, knock on wood, we think we're getting close to, is on an international basis. So we want to get something that is outside of the Canadian marketplace, primarily in the European marketplace with some things. So we're looking at expanding. We want to expand our footprint out internationally into other sectors. So we're looking at that to do that. As some of our people would understand, we have an offshore development group. So we have an offshore development group in Sri Lanka, which we've built up really nicely, and it really creates a cost-effective, and not just cost-effective, they're really good developers that can develop technology and do some work out in those marketplaces. So as we make acquisitions, it allows us to opportunity to expand our technology set in a cost-effective way. So we do those acquisitions and do that. So 2019, we want to do more acquisitions. That's the first part. The other part is we think we're really good at commercializing assets. So as we get assets and we see, hey, these ones are really viable, we think we can sell these things. We're going to put our marketing and our sales efforts into those things and start expanding that. And Nova Scotia is a really good example of that. We took an organization that was doing $3 million in revenue, and in one transaction got a what did we get? A $20 million transaction based off of their technology set. So we're constantly looking at expanding and building on those commercialization efforts.
Wow. So then if you were to say there's a number globally that you could go for in terms of the market value of the whole opportunity, what would that be?
Oh, it's hundreds of millions and billions. The mental health space in particular is just a growth-based sector, but we're looking at other sectors. We have familiar in the patient flow world, which is the concept of moving patients effectively through hospitals in a cost-effective fashion to free up beds. That's an sector we really like to get into, and we're literally looking at some of those areas as well.
Fantastic. Okay, so what would you say is going to be the biggest growth driver for 2019 and beyond?
2019, M&A and expansion, so bigger, larger provincial deals. We still got our cookie cutter, one-off deals that are going to keep coming in place. So we're constantly going to go get those deals and put it through, and we're looking to go add larger base deals. And then we'll start making some, we'll start layering on some acquisitions on those things for some things. We really want to get outside of the Canadian and U.S. marketplace and start getting some expansion internationally and start getting some distribution channels done. But we set up the framework, we've set up the foundation so far. And now we're looking to expand through M&A and through those acquisition strategies. We want to get cost-effective M&A. We want win-win situation for the targets as well as us. We tend to use a little bit of currency and cash through there, but we're starting to see that those things still start hitting our bottom line as the years start coming through, as the deals start coming through and the acquisitions start coming through. So we've been profitable on adjusted EBITDA for the last 2-3 quarters. We expect that to continue, and we expect to improve on that bottom line as we continue to grow.
All right. Well, that's great, Dan. Thanks for the update. We'll leave it there for now. We'll come back to you soon.
We'll sit there. We got some more news, and we'll come back and talk to you guys again.
You bet. All the time. When we come back, there's been many veterans across the country suffering from PTSD with alarming consequences. How many are turning to cannabis? Here's our team to let you know.
I think every combat armed soldier that's been on tour and in a combat zone suffers from some degree of PTSD. If they've had critical incidences while they were overseas, then that PTSD could be even more severe. But I think the foundation for PTSD actually comes in a lot of ways from the training that they give us. It's all about violence, speed and aggression, being able to flip that switch to insane violence immediately upon a threat. And that type of training and driving that home and driving that threat home kind of puts you in a certain mindset, a do or die, life or death type of mindset. And then when you go overseas and you're put into that intense environment, you're just kind of programmed, I think, when you come back to suffer from PTSD symptoms. And I think that while you're overseas, if you have a critical incident or something happens while you're there, you're programmed to be susceptible to these symptoms. When I returned from Afghanistan, the symptoms I started noticing right away was hypervigilance. I was having trouble getting to sleep at night. and my level of anxiety, anger, and frustration with kind of everything throughout my day was at a very, very high level. My wife was the first who said, "Rather, you've got PTSD." She was the first to notice it. Once she kind of pointed it out to me, I recognized it as well, but I was afraid to go see the military physicians to get a PTSD diagnosis because that basically put you on the injured list. It meant that your career was essentially over, that you weren't going to be selected for any courses or any additional tours, and I was afraid of having that PTSD stigma associated with me. And I also knew that if I got a diagnosis, I would be expected to take pharmaceuticals.
When we're seeing veterans in the clinic, the vast majority have been to numerous specialists. So usually they've already seen a psychiatrist, they may have been to a pain clinic, they've been on at least 4, 5, 6, and sometimes I've seen as high as 10 to 12 different pharmaceuticals. From the psychiatric standpoint, we usually try antidepressants, even sometimes antipsychotics or sleeping pills because insomnia is such a terrible symptom that vets experience. When it comes to chronic pain, we see them on a host of different neurological medications like Cymbalta or Tramadol or opioids like oxycodone or Percocets. And despite all of those pharmaceuticals, the vast majority of them still feel like they're not getting the relief that they're looking for, or they're not tolerating the side effects of the pharmaceuticals as well as they'd like. Sometimes they are a little bit better on them, but they complain about being in a zombie state, or just not themselves, or lacking interest in everyday activities, and so something's off still, and so they're still looking for something to help manage their symptoms.
Having seen other guys use pharmaceuticals and some of the effects that they've had, and just I was very adverse to that idea. So I actually, due to the fact that I had a relationship with cannabis when I was in high school, kind of preferred it over drinking and knew the effects of it. Instead of seeking a diagnosis in pharmaceuticals, I actually picked up some cannabis and I began using cannabis in the evenings.
And so with vets, a lot of them have significant insomnia where they experience recurrence of dreams or traumas at night, and that keeps them awake all night. And if that's what you're experiencing, your brain cannot heal. And so what we usually give vets who failed other therapies is we'll usually give them a little bit of cannabis oil at night. Usually it has some CBD and some THC in it, or actually just a pure THC. Usually very small, modest doses, usually between 2 to 10 milligrams. And what the vast majority will come back and say is, I feel like I'm sleeping better, my dreams are actually substantially less, and then they wake up the next day and they feel substantially less anxious.
I just knew cannabis was probably better for me than pharmaceuticals. I knew it had an effect on me that would relax me, help me get to sleep, and feel better about things. And when I used it to treat my PTSD symptoms for the first time, it was very, very effective, and it was something that I could continue to use on a habitual, go-forward basis. And it seemed to put me in the right mindset. I noticed that when I used cannabis, I had more patience with my wife. I was able to endure some things longer. It would help me get out of the house. It would help me get into crowd. That's what I really struggled with initially, was crowded spaces, malls, shopping centers, festivals, fairs, all those fun things I used to do. As soon as you're in those crowds, it would really start to wear on me. So I found I could use cannabis to get out into those places.
Cannabis allows them to be themselves without that constant state of fear and worry. And we know that there are cannabinoid receptors in the parts of the brain, what we call the amygdala or the hippocampus. These are very specific areas in the brain where fear is generated. And so if we can relax that area of the brain, we can treat the symptoms of constant worry and fear. What patients and vets in particular, what they love about cannabis is that it can replicate 3, 4, 5 medications sometimes. So they can come in and be on 10 to 11 drugs, have a lot of side effects, not feel themselves, and we can hopefully, with time, if cannabis is effective for them, reduce their pharmaceuticals by 30, 40, 50% or more. If you look at some of the research coming out, the research is starting to validate this, and so Health Canada StatsCan had some statistics on vets using cannabis, and what we're seeing is that 2 out of 3 will say their symptoms of depression or suicidal ideation just diminish. And so that's remarkable because not a lot of therapies can be that effective. And so if this bears out in additional studies and trials, I think we're going to have a new gold standard when it comes to treating post-traumatic stress disorder, and that's going to be cannabis.
I would say you owe it to yourself to try cannabis because it's potentially a way better alternative. And if you don't like it, what have you lost? It's safe, it's not addictive, you can't hurt yourself. I mean, you really have nothing ultimately to lose. And if you're suffering so greatly that you're taking pharmaceuticals to treat these symptoms, you owe it to yourself.
Can we mention this?
You know, PTSD is veterans are, obviously coming back with PTSD due to the horrors of war. But do you know that
It's a
PTSD
syndrome,
is
right?
actually as prevalent among first responders as it is among war veterans? Like people who respond to massive shootings, people who respond to traffic fatalities. PTSD, I think PTSD is a byproduct of a crowded planet.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Come on.
The busier it gets, the more stressful it becomes.
If you ever stop and read some of the shit that's going on out there about, with these drug-crazed people, what they do, and to people that are supposedly their family members, there's some real sickos out there.
Insanity.
Capital S.
Capital S, right, Suzanne?
Sickos. No, there's psychiatry in all of us. It's just a matter of degree.
Psychiatry or psychology? Or psychosis?
Psychiatry.
There's psychiatry in all of us?
Well, there's an element of psychiatry in the way we are.
Psychiatry is the study of psychosis, or rather, the study of the psyche. So you mean I've got some psychiatry in me, like Sigmund Freud is occupying a small piece of my universe?
No, psychiatrist. He's a psychiatrist.
Yeah, but he's studying psychiatry.
No, I know, but psychiatry is
you
the
mean
condition.
Psycho? Everybody's a little bit psycho?
Yeah. That's a way of saying it. We all are. Come on.
I'm not.
No, well, maybe you aren't.
No.
Maybe that's why you're always smiling. But
Maybe that's a sign of my psyche.
Psycho?
My psychiatric psyche.
I'd like to be under the table. Well, no. Jesus.
Are we sure that this is supposed to be what we're looking at right now? I think this is wrong.
Okay, what's on TV right now?
You.
We're talking.
You and me. Yeah, but what is...
Okay.
Oh, okay. Ignore that. What else is going on, Ed? The index is on fire.
Let's do that.
Now let's
do
see
it.
if my NDI is still working. What's the good word there in the bucket? Oh, okay, so pull it up. We're looking at the Midas Letter Large Cap Index, and I want to zoom in here on some...
Midas Letter. Here we go.
Oh, never mind.
Cannabis. I got it.
All right, pull up the large index.
7.59%.
On the
Midas Letter Canadian Cannabis Index. That's the big boy.
Yeah, that's the delayed one, though. I was looking at the... can you pull it up on the other one?
This is delayed?
On the quote stream? Yeah, this is delayed 20 minutes. But look at that big...
look at that big resurgence.
I know. Look at that big wick.
I got to tell you, I really, and that's why I'm glad.
Can we call that a macro wick?
That's not really a macro wick.
What a big wick you have, sir. I'm just happy to see you.
Look at it. Midas Letter Canadian Venture Cannabis Index.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. Down 0.46%.
Huh.
So you've got huge money going into the big boys and at the expense of the little guy.
Yeah, interesting.
And look at this one. Okay.
There's a pattern emerging here that in times of concentrated macro catalysts in the sector-wide catalysts. So we had Novartis doing the buy-in of Tilray. We had today, Canopy getting a license to sell CBD products in New York, paving the way for all Canadian companies to operate in Canada, despite the TSX's discomfort with Canadian companies operating there.
Yeah.
So that's pretty major.
Got a trivia question
You
for
got you got the Piper Jaffray recommendation.
Right.
You've got Tilray coming out and announcing that they're not going to sell any stock.
Yeah.
Kronos Group does the deal with the tobacco guys.
Altria.
Memory part. Altria.
Altria, yeah. Not Altria.
But so nothing happens, and then suddenly all these catalysts pile up together, and next thing you know, the whole sector's on fire, but only in the large caps. So now,
so what do you think in your index?
In my
index?
Our index.
Which one is the biggest percentage gainer today? It's pretty obvious, right?
Well, Canopy.
No, it's not.
It's not?
It's not. I'm shocked. That was a trick question.
Oh, well, apparently.
Wait a minute. You know what it is? It's TerraSend.
TerraSend
up 14%, 13.9 at this point.
No kidding.
And Canopy Growth's up only 12.5. You loser.
Canopy
Growth. No, I'd say that
hardly,
it's been a big winner.
Right.
Hey, I take my hat off to you shareholders out there.
Throw up that chart again, will you? Okay, so Canopy Growth won 12.5%. TerraSend's up 13.9%. Now, this is the TerraSend that supposedly wasn't worth anything, according to the Globe and Mail.
Oh, there you go. So that's
the great. Well, I'm not going to say
I read the Globe and Mail every day. The crossword and the Sudoku.
Oh, I don't think that really qualifies as a Globe and Mail because those are both syndicated from probably some other source.
Oh, so you mean I don't need to buy the Globe? I can just do it online?
Nah, well,
probably.
You know, these days.
But still 3 losers. Okay, the 3 losers in that big index: Hexo, you know that one.
Yeah.
OrganiGram.
Yep.
And the green organic Dutchman.
Wow. Greg Engel is going to be here at 4:10. It's such a disappointment that he's going to be here on a day that he's actually down after so many up days. You know, you could have bought OrganiGram for $4.50 a share on December 20th. And look at it.
You don't say.
As you say. I say you could have
bought Canopy Growth this morning, picked up a cool 12%, and then headed to Panama.
Yeah, but who knew they were going to come out with that press release?
Head to Panama and bag the money.
Bag the money. Greg's not here. Oh, look at that.
Well,
you know what?
We'll just talk right through.
We have a trivial element here about the legality of cannabis in Amsterdam.
All right, folks, time to test your knowledge. Amsterdam has been the go-to party place for decades. Yeah, in fact, it's known as the weed capital of Europe. So our question to you is, when did recreational cannabis become legal in Amsterdam? Was it A, 2011, B, 1986, C, 1993, or D, none of the above? We'll give you the answer coming up later in the show.
And now I'm joined by Greg Engel, CEO of OrganiGram Holdings. Greg, welcome back.
Hey, great to be on again, James.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've seen you. I was just commenting to Ed that on December 20th, we could have bought your stock at $4.50 a share. And now here it is way back up in the sixes. And so tell me, what's going on with OrganiGram? What's happened in the beginning of 2019 and what's gonna be the highlights of the year?
Yeah, a couple key things. I mean, you've seen some reports out in the market. So certainly just before the holidays, we saw B&M Bloomberg talking about kind of our market share in Atlantic Canada, and we're now really a national player in the adult rec market. We're in every province except for Quebec now. I think one key milestone we actually just passed on the weekend was we produced our 1 millionth pre-roll. So we've been one of the big providers in that section of the space, and certainly continue to kind of ramp up and really provide the market with as much product as we can, and getting great brand recognition now that kind of now we're a few months into the adult rec program as well. So our Edison Cannabis brand certainly is getting really good recognition out in the marketplace.
So if all of your revenue, what percentage is medical versus recreational, would you say?
So we have not put out any adult rec results yet. So our Q1, which was September, October, November, will be put out in a few weeks, and that'll have our first sales in the adult rec market. So
half a month,
not quite there,
right?
Yeah.
Half a month of rec numbers, so that won't really be the telling one. But
well, it'll be the load in though. It'll be October, November, right? So certainly.
Sure. So, but from a product side, what are you seeing? Like mostly rec, mostly.
Mostly rec for sure. I mean, certainly one of the things too is we've been. as far as I know, we've seen some ups and downs in the medical space in terms of companies being able to meet supply. So we had anticipated kind of our medical demand, and we make sure that day in and day out we've got product for our medical patient base. So we've been one of the only companies that's consistently supplying our medical patients and have a full range of oils and dried products for them, as well as supplying the adult rec market. So still a big part of our business.
We actually ordered OrganiGram product on October 17th.
Excellent. Well, thanks for your support, James.
Of course. Okay, so so you're in every province,
except Quebec at this point.
Except Quebec. And what is the expectation from where OrganiGram sits in terms of like the ability to service the national market as a East Coast brand? Do you think that East Coast element, which at one point was kind of like a flag in the sand saying we're the only East Coast thing, now everybody's crowded into Eastern Canada. You've in turn crowded into Canada, and so is the playing field now equal in terms of brands? Do Canadians have any loyalty to a brand based on geographical location?
I think the biggest thing we've seen to date is that people have loyalty to the product that's available, to be frank. I mean, there's definitely been some supply gaps, and I mean, that's one of OrganiGram's big success points to date, is that while we haven't met 100% of every commitment we've had, we've been one of the best performers in our ability to actually supply product on a consistent basis. And we see reports where there are surveys going on to look at how much product or who has listings, and some of those reports are not always accurate because they look at the number of SKUs. We didn't focus on a broad range of SKUs. We focused on a select number of SKUs and making sure that those were consistently available, because that's at the end of the day how you're going to build a brand, and that's been critical to us.
Ah, I see. Very good. So the shortages that we've seen in Ontario, I've noticed that I've never seen OrganiGram out of stock.
We've had product there consistently, for sure, and we're focused on. And one of the things we made a very conscious choice was, our commitments in Atlantic Canada, and then kind of subsequent to that, Ontario and Alberta as our core markets, and then as we went into other markets, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and more recently BC, is before we enter into agreements, we want to make sure that we can supply the market, and that's one of the key things that we're very proud of, and our sales team's working closely. And I think the biggest thing we're seeing now, with the exception of Ontario that doesn't have retail stores as of yet, is what's that in-store experience like, right? Our sales team spend a lot of time in terms of training staff still and providing point of sale material and making sure that when you go into retail locations, over the holidays I was out in Alberta visiting family and had a chance to go in a couple of the retail stores out there. And it was really great to see our products and the recognition we have in store, and also hear some of the dialogue from some of the staff about how things are being accepted. So again, great feedback in terms of our product line, and also having it consistently available.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen any direct relationship between an uptake in the recreational product among OrganiGram customers at the expense of the medical coterie?
So what was interesting is, in the couple weeks leading up to the launch of Rec program, we actually saw a jump in our medical sales, and I think a lot of medical patients were concerned about supply. So our medical kind of patient numbers and revenue it's been consistent. We're on the same kind of run rate. Part of that, again, has been having product available. So, and certainly we expected to see a little bit of a drop-off, but then there's that whole side of, if you're trying the product, you've never been a cannabis user, you go into a recreational store, and then you realize that, hey, I can get under my healthcare spending account, or I can get some level of coverage, or in the case of OrganiGram, we're covering the excise tax for medical patients. So there's an advantage of shifting to medical. So I think some people are trying cannabis as a self-treatment and then looking to go into the medical program as well at the same time as they've tried product from the rec market.
Yeah, I personally have. I've accessed cannabis from the Ontario Cannabis Store, but I find that the medical experience is it's so much more mature, and therefore so much more reliable at this point that I find myself, using my medical access more so than my recreational access. But obviously that's part and parcel to do with a new sort of supply chain that's just coming out of a previously non-existent era. So tell me about the European stuff that you guys were doing. How is your build out into Europe going?
Yeah, so again, we participated with our partner in Germany, Aaleafia Cannabis, in terms of making an application under the tender process, which we now don't expect to see for a few months now in terms of how those are received. Working closely again with our Serbian partner, Eviana, which is traded here on the CSE as well. They're going through the process. They've been cultivating CBD from hemp last year, and they're just going through the process of producing CBD. And I was in Europe for a significant period of time at the end of last year, and really saw that there's a big opportunity on the CBD side, right? There's a big gap in terms of what's available in the market, and the companies that are currently selling CBD are having difficulty getting enough supply to meet the demand that's out there. It's amazing to see in a lot of jurisdictions where it's a medical product, but it's also a nutraceutical, and there's a lot of self-treatment that happens, and you see CBD routinely in not only natural health food stores, but also a lot of pharmacies are doing in different countries white label product as well, right? So there's just that growth that's happening in CBD, which I think is really exciting, which is part of our partnership, not only with Eviana, but as we've talked about before, with Hyacinth here in Canada as well.
Sure. So that was going to be my next question. How's it going with Hyacinth and biosynthesis using yeast?
Yeah. So Hyacinth again is just they're at the stage right now where they're looking to finalize kind of their own facility and kind of move forward on that side at a larger scale. Finalizing things within the near future with a contract manufacturer. The interesting part of some of the work they've been doing as well is now they're, in addition to CBG, CBD, THC, they're also, which they've got a proven path for, they're looking to synthesize minor cannabinoids, I think, which is really interesting because in the future that allows you both in the pharmaceutical world to produce a very unique, complex mixture of both major and minor cannabinoids. And you have to remember, many of these minor cannabinoids are, only present in such small numbers in the plant. If you can produce them in a pure form through biosynthesis, presents a huge opportunity. But it also has a huge implication on the rec market, right? I think some of these products can have an impact in the rec market, and some combination products can be developed there. So exciting times for them, continue to move kind of against progress, and really excited to see what's going to come out of them. We expect to see product from them 12 to 14 months from now in terms of pure
on a commercial scale. Interesting, because I always thought with your background in biopharma that you would be one of the guys who was going to very much be at the cutting edge of that, and certainly the investment in Hyacinth seems to support that. Do you, at this point, have any kind of partnerships with any clinical or university level sort of exploratory pure CBD or pure cannabinoid ingredient as a biopharma?
Not yet, as of yet. I think that's something we're talking about in terms of the future. Is there a way when you produce these pure forms that are more pharma-like to actually go through the R&D process with some of them? We do have a really interesting partnership with the University of UWM in New Brunswick, University of Moncton, looking at a lot of things in terms of plant development, right, and trying to extrapolate some of the learnings that they've had with other plants into the cannabis plant. So we've got some space set up from an R&D perspective within our facility for their PhD team to do research, and that's ranging across a whole area, including not only kind of genetic tracking of products, but also doing things like non-GMO plant modification. There's a lot of techniques that are used in other agricultural types of industries where you can do bacterial infusion into the soil, and that can have a huge impact on yields in areas like that. So that's an exciting partnership we're working on right now.
Wow. Okay. Great, Greg. So then, is it your intention at OrganiGram then to sort of divide the company? Like the last time we visited the facility, you had a very clear distinction between your recreational products and more your medical line. Is that something that we're going to see continue in 2019 and beyond? Or are you leaning more towards a recreational or a biological or biomedical?
No, we've done a separation and distinction. Our OrganiGram is the brand and the kind of how we name our medical products. We want to make sure that we build off and retain that brand. And then, Edison Cannabis Company, our anchor organics lines, we got our organic certification last October. So we wanted to build up enough inventory. We'll be launching that into that recreational market in the not too distant future. And then our Trailblazer line. So we do treat them very different and distinct, and we have some very different products. So even in our oils, for example, we have a different line of products in our medical population versus our adult rec population. So we want to make sure that we had an entry-level oil for people to try, that we're kind of new cannabis users in the adult recreational market. We've had good success with the response from it.
Sure. What is the most popular product at OrganiGram?
Our Rio Bravo, I would say, in the Edison line.
Okay.
I'm not sure which products you've tried. You mentioned you ordered some products.
I was actually just looking at the available strains, and I can't remember which one I tried, and I think it was Low Tide or High Tide. No, it would have been High Tide because it was very potent in THC, we remember. Right. But it was really good. In fact, it was quite funny because we had it stashed in a drawer here, and everybody kept coming in and taking a little bit and going off, and it was down to nothing in no time.
There you go.
But
you have to replenish your stock, James.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I've actually got a process. I think I'm just become an OrganiGram medical patient.
Oh wow! Again,
Yes.
Thanks for your support. Appreciate it.
Of course. All right, Greg. Well, let's leave it there for now. We'll come back to you again in due course, and thanks very much for the update.
Excellent. Great. Thanks again for having me, James.
You bet. Always. Now, here is the question the answer rather to the question you might be wondering: when did cannabis become legal in Amsterdam?
Earlier in the show, we told you that Amsterdam is known as the weed capital. So the question was, when did recreational cannabis become legal in the Venice of the North? Well, if you answered none of the above, then you were right, but maybe not for the right reason. You see, cannabis is actually still illegal. It's also decriminalized, so you can legally smoke it in the city's weed cafes, but what could get you into trouble is you might get a fine for smoking if walking around the streets. Although coppers could give you a €90 fine, they usually look the other way unless you're acting like a goon. And despite a big weed culture, without legalization, there's no regulation of the strain or potency of the weed. You could be smoking weed mixed with tobacco or oregano for all you know. So how did they get away with it? Well, look around you in a weed cafe. Most of the customers are tourists.
Boom. Boom. Back to you, Ed.
What? You know how to do it?
Anyway, so OrganiGram. Remember that bag of OrganiGram we had in the drawer here, Ed, and you kept smoking it? How was that?
It's all gone. A long time ago.
Yeah, it was pretty good, wasn't it?
I kept looking for more. Oh.
Did you? Oh, look, you got somebody reaching up behind you there.
Who goosed the moose?
Who goosed the moose? Oh, boy.
Did you ever see Paul Lynde? Paul Lynde was one of my favorites.
Who?
Paul Lynde.
Hollywood Squares Paul Lynde? He talked like this.
Yeah.
I remember him. Yeah, he was like the male Katharine Hepburn.
He gets in the center square, right, so that when there's they got to, okay, Paul, to solve the puzzle or to fill the, normally when you pat a dog on its head, it'll make his tail wag. And you go, yeah. What about a goose? Paul goes, I'll make him bark.
Gotta make him bark?
It'll make him bark. What about a goose?
You pat a goose on the head.
No, what about you know what a goose is?
Oh.
What about a goose?
Like, you're still talking about the dog.
No, but that was the thing, right?
Nothing slow about me, Ed.
I know, but that was one of the most brilliant, and I tell that joke to people, and nobody gets it.
No, that's hilarious. That's a very...
And so Paul Lynde goes, it'll make him bark. What about, you pat him on the head, his tail wags.
Yeah.
What about a goose? It'll make him bark. You gotta like that. That's the funniest one of all time. Look at this.
So tell me about your little segment that you did there today. Like, what was I wasn't able to...
Well, you know, the whole premise is that, you know, if you look at evolution...
Yes.
And this is about evolution, right? So,
yes.
So when our species was... we were hunters and gatherers.
Uh-oh. We still are.
Well, except, you know, like, you know, there's people doing all kinds of jobs out here that they hate because they get paid money so that they can sustain themselves, right?
The cops.
The cops? The cops?
I thought you said the cops.
No, all kinds of people.
Right. I see. So basically people are stuck doing things they don't like for money.
Like how many people, they, in fact, you know, they say if you're doing things for money,
yeah,
it can't work. You can't be happy.
Fully Aware, one of our viewers, hello Fully Aware, says that somebody should make a channel testing out all these companies' weeds and letting us know if it's any good. That's what we gonna do. We gonna do that, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what we gonna do.
This guy is a guy over on the screen there. He's imitating you, but he's a split second behind.
Really?
Oh, it's you.
He's a little slow.
Yeah, you know, and so the gist is, like, when you only had to go get food for the day, and there was plenty of food, hunting and gathering,
right?
Then the rest of the time you kibitz with your buddies. You know, you made whoopee. Like, you know, you did
whoopee?
Yeah.
People still say that?
Well,
you made whoopee?
I'm trying to tone it down because I didn't know I was even being filmed today, and I said I threw the F-bomb out there.
Ooh, that's okay.
Rude. But no mail, no taxes. Nobody's saying, like, you know, the whole thing with taxes, I guess, started after farming started.
Yeah.
And then the king would say, okay, give me some tribute, and I'll protect you.
And I'll feed you.
And then the idea of, well, if you didn't get a good crop, maybe the big guy, like, you know what I mean? Like, you didn't have to worry about all that SHIT back then.
Right.
So now we've moved on. Now look at what's gone on with the tax thing here. It's getting crazy. It's crazy.
Well, I'm happy to pay taxes in Canada.
Yeah, but do you?
Yes. What are you talking about? Every time you go to the store.
Anybody from CRA, you're not allowed to watch this show.
No. I'm in very good standing with the CRA.
I'm talking about me.
And the CIA.
I'm talking about me.
Yeah. So what? I heard that they were calling you earlier.
It was
They have a check for you?
It was yeah.
They wanted to give you some money?
HST wants to know why I haven't remitted.
Oh. Remitted. You know, you saw the news piece about Canopy Rivers putting $9 million into greenhouse juices earlier. You saw it, you just don't remember.
I saw it.
You saw it. Yeah. And have you tried any of the greenhouse juices?
No.
No? Because they're really good.
Are they?
Yeah. I was pleasantly surprised to see this. And what about Aleafia delivering cannabis to CannTrust? I thought that was interesting. I didn't know that CannTrust would need to buy cannabis externally because they're selling everything they produce. That must be the only reason. This is why I look at the price of CannTrust, and if they're selling everything they can and selling for others now, is that not indicative of a pretty strong and robust market?
You know, look at Namaste down 13 cents today. How can Namaste go down 13 cents today on a day when all these other things are flying?
Well,
OH up 58 cents. OrganiGram down 6.
Yeah.
Was there OrganiGram?
Well, but the day, if you look at all the constituents, it's a very mixed bag today. I mean, the indexes are showing up. Have you got the indexes handy?
Yeah, I still have it up here. Like it or lump it.
Yeah.
Look at. Aurora was up 6%. Afri was up 2.5. Not bad. Well over 9 now.
Yeah.
It may fill that gap yet. It looks like it's trying.
On the CSE index, who is the big performer?
Okay, let's take a look. Let's go back one page.
Holy shit! C21 Investments. That's hilarious. CXXI. This is funny because
which
Brandon.
index? Like, I don't know. Like, which one?
CSE. Midas Letter CSE Canadian Cannabis Index. Interestingly enough, Brandon was telling me on Friday, he says, have you looked at C21 Investments? I said, no. He says, well, it's exhibiting all the signs of a breakout to the upside. It was at 80 cents, and here it is now, $1.04. I can't believe it. I'm getting good advice from internally our organization, and I don't even take that. There's very little hope for me as an investor.
But do you think maybe we're just so inundated? And I got to mention that we just got a flash from Ricky Gerwitz about Namaste. So apparently the CEO has been selling shares. That's he's reporting. Yeah. So do you think that might sour some people?
I think that's never viewed as a catalyst.
No, yeah, sure. If you're thinking, well, if he's selling, now he's selling for different reasons.
Well,
he owns too much of it. Well, I said that wrong.
He might own too much of it. He might own just enough. The bottom line is if you got a strong market. Well, The CEO, if the CEO is selling, that's never viewed as a good thing.
No.
I mean, no
Well,
matter
that's
what
why-
the reason.
that's right.
If you're selling stock to participate in another private placement, that makes sense from a market participant's perspective,
Yes.
but not from a retail investor's perspective. A seller is a seller is a seller, and if it's the CEO, that's not a good thing. So that would explain why the weakness in Namaste, I guess. Interestingly enough. But most everything, like Whalen Group, $1.42 today.
That was down to what, 80 cents?
That was down to, 80. I thought it was 92 you could have bought it for on about September, or rather, whatchamacallit, December 20th.
Yeah.
But so a lot of these stocks have just done so well since then. Like that's up almost 50% collectively.
So what's the one you just mentioned that was up, the big winner on that?
Well, C21 Investments, CXXI, up 25% on the day, up to $1.04.
How come it's not on my list?
I don't know, Ed. You got the wrong list. Did you click on the change percent?
Oh, yeah, that's
Oh, no, I'm looking on Midas Letter website.
I got it.
There you go.
Yeah. And Captor Capital, that was up 30 cents to $1.90, up 19%. Chemisys International, up. So there's definitely Isodial. Did I say it right?
Isodial. That's the way the gentleman who started it said it. So I didn't know. I used to call it a zodial.
Yeah.
Studio.
Phil Collins.
There's a lot of companies are. Look at Even Boulevard. Look at that.
What's it at?
6 cents. But this is the thing.
Did you see the big volume on AMX today?
Juju. What about Juju? Juju's been slugging its way out of a very negative position.
Voltaire, anybody knows why there's selling pressure on Kush?
On Kush bottles? I don't know. Do we know anything about Kush? Where is that listed? No, that's an OTC thing. We don't follow the OTC.
Yeah.
Thanks anyways, guys.
Gotta laugh. Gotta laugh.
Yeah, what else did very well today?
My foot did well.
Yeah.
Because I had it in my mouth.
Origin House, $8.20. I bought that thing at $9.20 months ago. It's getting back there. I sold it, and I should have held on to it. Green Growth Brands, $6.20. See, this was the one that has to raise money. It's going to do a financing at $7 a share to complete the FRIA deal. Nobody thought it would happen because the stock was at $4 or $4.25. Here it is, $6.20 today. Different look, different storyline. Cannex tacked on 3 cents a share today. What about FSD Pharma? That thing's come back from purgatory into the, well, it's flat today, 38 cents. Heritage Cannabis up a penny to 19
You know what?
cents.
I'd have to say it's the hottest sector in town. And the S&P was down 13 points. Not a big down day, but it looks like it's starting to deviate from its upward channel. And I got to tell you, if that index rolls over, it's so big by market cap.
Katie barred the door?
Well, we saw what happened. We saw when it dropped from October to
So basically,
Christmas.
So David Rosenberg's prophecy that it's a renter's market, do not buy and hold, does not apply to the cannabis sector?
Well, if the cannabis sector gets nailed tomorrow, you're going to say, yes, it does.
Well, not if I'm a long-term buy and hold investor. Intraday...
No, but I think he's suggesting there's a lot of volatility in markets that
but
can't...
intra-week volatility should not have a bearing on the strategy of a long-term buy and hold investor. I mean, because that's part and parcel of being long-term buy and hold, is you weather the volatility without changing your strategy. That's the essence of a disciplined strategy, if I'm not mistaken, Edward. Correct me if I'm wrong.
What do you want me to say?
I'm wrong.
Okay, I'm not going to argue with the guy. He's writing in the Globe and Mail. You know, I write occasionally in my diary, but...
Oh, really? You don't write for the Globe and Mail?
No,
You
not
could.
yet. Not yet, but they're...
Not yet, or not anymore?
Okay, so I want to just look at one thing before we sign off here tonight.
Whoa, what's the hurry? You got someplace to be?
I want to see what the 10-year rate's doing.
Ooh, the 10-year rate relative to the 2-year rate. That would be interesting. How is that spread shaping up?
You know, the day it hit 255 a few days ago, and the markets have rallied since. Let me just we'll put up a 3-month chart. So rates are now at 271. If rates start to drop here, and this thing is much more powerful than any Fed bank, this 10-year rate, because they can't screw with this, right? The 10-year rate is determined by supply and demand. Right? So if everybody's loading up on the 10-year rate, that's saying rates are going lower, regardless of what the Fed does. And if the Fed keeps raising short-term rates, you get this inverted curve, Katie by the door.
Recession's coming. Winter's coming. You know they're coming out with another episode of, another season of the
Game of Thrones? How did I know you were going to say that?
I don't know.
Do you know the word brumal?
Brumal?
Yeah, B-R-U-M-A-L.
No. Never heard that one.
It means wintry. Wintry.
Brumal.
Brumal. A brumal day. A brumal day in March.
Huh.
You're probably thinking that's bullshit.
No, I think it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, so tomorrow we've got Keith Merker's going to be here from WeedMD, Matt Bottomley, the cannabis analyst. He's actually the biotech, well, he's an analyst with Canaccord. Matt Bottomley is going to be here. Neptune Wellness CEO Jim Hamilton is going to be here. We had a great conversation last time. I can't wait for that, but that's all tomorrow. So thank you very much for watching. Subscribe, like, tell your friends, do all that good stuff. Thank you. Bye-bye.